I'm so tired of having nonstop conversations about what the Bible says.
What standard are you pulling from to determine this is good and that is bad? You're either on God's side or you're on Satan's side, the world's side. There is no middle ground. The earth shall be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord, as much as the waters cover the sea. Though they know God's righteous decree that those who practice such things deserve to die, they not only do them, but give approval to those who practice them. That was Romans chapter 1, verse 32. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the King of the Cosmos. It has been a week, and actually, it's been 2 weeks because we weren't here last week, and I'm very sorry about that. Leave your comments and rebukes in the in the comment section below if you missed me or if you didn't. Maybe you don't miss me at all, and that's okay. We have some stuff to talk about, and I think that one of the things that I want to talk about is a hot button topic right now, and it has to do with the leaked opinion of the Supreme Court over Roe versus Wade, how they're going to overturn it. And everybody is absolutely losing their mind over this. They're losing their mind over this, even though they probably haven't read the actual leaked document. They don't know exactly what this is going to do. They think this is the end of the world for their abortion rights. Whereas the Christian looks at this and we're like, yay! This is a good thing. This is a very good thing. Why? Because of God's righteous law, because of his law that murderers deserve to be punished. Murder is not a good thing at all. A baby in the womb is a baby, a human being. And to kill a human being because of their location is simply wrong. It's simply wrong on every level. And you hear tons of justifications as to why no, it's okay because they're in this location or they're in this stage of their life. It's not even life at all, and on we go. Those things simply don't matter when it boils down to two things. Primarily, God's law, and secondarily, science. Science, it's funny how we'll quote the science when it conveniences us, but as soon as it contradicts what we want, well, now it's not science. Now it's hate speech and stuff like that. So, okay, this is from Politico. Supreme Court has voted to overturn abortion rights, draft opinion shows. We hold that Roe and Casey must be overruled, Justice Alito writes in his initial majority draft circulated inside the court. The Supreme Court has voted to strike down the landmark Roe v. Wade decision, according to an initial draft majority opinion written by Justice Samuel Alito, circulated inside of the court, and obtained by Politico. The draft opinion is a full-throated, unflinching repudiation of the 1973 decision, which guaranteed federal constitutional protections of abortion rights, and a subsequent 1992 decision, Planned Parenthood versus Casey, that largely maintained the right. Roe was egregiously wrong from the start, Alito writes. Okay, we hold, and here's the quote from the leaked document. We hold that Roe and Casey must be overruled, he writes in the document, labeled as the opinion of the court. It is time to heed the Constitution and return the state of abortion to the people's elected representatives. Now, okay, we've covered on this program before where the Bible comes down on the subject of abortion. We've talked about, we did a whole episode on abortion. Go ahead and I'll put that in the link and you can go check that out for yourself. And we talked about how slaughtering any human being, murder is a sin. It's wrong. It's wrong to shed the blood of innocent human beings who have done nothing to deserve death. Okay, and that's exactly what we have with abortion. It's wrong. It's evil, and it needs to be stopped. Now that has said, okay, we have said that. What is extraordinarily fascinating to me, okay, is that their words. It's time we heed the Constitution and return to the issue of abortion to the people's elected representatives. People are freaking out over that. Number one, because they say, what? Abortion is a constitutional right, even though you read the Constitution and it's nowhere in there. Abortion is never mentioned in the Constitution. And So where do they get the idea that it's a constitutional right? Where do they get the idea that healthcare is a constitutional right? You hear these statements all the time. This is a constitutional right. That's a constitutional right, even though it's not in the Constitution at all. Abortion is not there. Instead, what they have decided is that, okay, it's not in the Constitution. It goes against the Constitution. So we're going to return the issue of abortion to the people's elected representatives, okay? All that means is that it's going to kick it back to the states. At least for now, whenever their ruling becomes public, as it was supposed to, because, hey, leaking this document was a federal crime. No one seems to be talking about that. But as soon as this goes out, at least initially, nothing really is going to change. All it does is kick it back to the states. The state decides what they want to do with abortion. Now, for the Christian, that's like, okay, good. Wow. That means we have a little bit more say in what we want in our state regarding abortion. And, you've seen great efforts from organizations like End Abortion Now. They're trying to get bills passed, and they're trying to put it into law that abortion is murder. They're trying to legislate this, and they're doing a good job. This certainly gives me more hope. I remember this popping up on my phone yesterday. Right now it's Wednesday, so yesterday is when this leaked out. I remember this popping up on my phone, and I was actually kind of feeling so depressed before it even popped up on my phone, because I was just thinking of the state of the country and how we view God and everything like that. And all of a sudden this pops up, and I said out loud as I was walking over to get my coffee, I said, wow, there's hope for us yet. Because there is hope for us. It's, sometimes we have a view that we're only going downwards and there's no way to pull us back up. And even though all signs and indications seem to point that way, that we are just, spiraling downward morally in this country, it's stuff like this that gives me hope. It gives me hope that the standards of truth and righteousness and justice, as according to God's law, can still be upheld in this country. Now, okay, I understand they're not necessarily doing it by God's law, okay? They're doing it by the Constitution, and that's their job. But if you read the Constitution and you read the Declaration of Independence, there's no avoiding that this country was based on Christian principles with God's law in mind. And so I think returning to that mindset about how to run a country according to God's law, not man's law, is the only way to save any nation, particularly this one. And this is a step in the right direction. This is a good thing. I can't wait to hear more about this. People are already rioting in the streets and everything like that and protesting. And it reminded me of what I read to you earlier. Romans chapter 1, verse 32. Okay? Subconsciously, the human being knows at least the basic tenets of right and wrong. We know that. It's like nobody needs to even teach us that. There are things ingrained into us. God's law is ingrained into us to the point where we know murder is wrong. Lying is wrong. And, that's your conscience. That's God's law written on your heart. And that thing can be either, supported or diminished depending on your upbringing, but it's there nonetheless. It's there regardless. And I look at all these people that are protesting in America to have the right to kill a baby. And I look at verse 32 and I'm like, that's exactly where we are. Though they know God's righteous decree that those who practice such things deserve to die, okay? That's God's decree. That's God's righteous decree, that sin equals death. That's the punishment. That's the penalty. There's the crime for inaction. There's a consequence for inaction, and that's it. And they know this. Every human being knows this. But although they knew that, although they know that God's righteous decree says, hey, there's a consequence for what I'm doing, they not only do them, but give approval to those who practice them. So they do them, And then they give approval to others who are doing the same thing that they're doing in, conjunction with trying to get away from the law of God and breaking the law of God. When we get into this herd mentality, when we get a bunch of people with the same opinions as ours around us, it makes us feel a whole lot better. And that can go one way or another. That can go in a good way or a bad way. We can take that with the church, okay? We spend time with each other. Why? Because we have a good effect on each other. A good effect. But that can also work in the negative, okay? And you get this in the society at large. When there's some unrighteous, wicked decision or opinion or mindset that is held, you feel better about it. If you're just by yourself, you know it's wrong. But if you get others around you that support you in that and say, "Oh, this is good. Oh, this is righteous. This is perfect. So brave," and everything like that, your conscience becomes, suppressed even more, and you can calm down. So that's what I see happening with this. I'm continuing to, we should be praying for this. We should be praying that God's law is upheld in this nation. Because remember, there's only two options when it comes to ruling a nation and establishing the laws they're in. It's either God's law or man's law. That's all you got, okay? And you have to choose one or the other, okay? We have seen the course of history that choosing man's law has led to countless deaths of millions and millions of people. So going to God's law is the only way to get away from that. Now, I know somebody will hear that and go, "Oh yeah, what about the Inquisitions? What about all the Crusades and everything like that?" No. That is man corrupting God's commandments and laws, okay? You can't use that as a standard. Use God's law as a standard, not somebody's interpretation of God's law. Go to the Word of God itself, and you'll find out exactly what God says on certain matters. So, I would instruct everyone. I would ask you, please pray for this situation. That that the Supreme Court will not bow to the wishes of the mob, and be intimidated by all these protests and riots, because that's exactly why the document was leaked. Okay, they leaked it because they knew that they could probably get enough opposition to make the Supreme Court go back on their decision. That's what they're hoping. And no one seems to be talking about how that's a federal crime to leak a Supreme Court document, a draft. That's a big thing. But even if they catch the guy or the girl, whoever it is, damage has already been done. It's already out. So, okay, keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. And now what we want to do is talk about something completely different, because I don't want you to think that this is a purely negative program. Actually, all that we just talked about was not negative. It was actually all positive. But I wanted to do a little bit of a Bible study with you, okay? And what we want to look at is something that popped up on the Bible app this morning. And I looked at it. It was the verse of the day. If you have the Bible app, which is illegal to have in China and illegal to have in Afghanistan because of what has happened. But if you have the Bible app, you'll know that there are verses of the day. Excuse me. And I saw the verse of the day today, and I had to sit there and stare at my phone. And I had to actually think, do I believe that? And the fact that I was challenged by it tells me I have a lot more work to do as a Christian. I have a lot more work to do as a Christian in my sanctification. There are times in my life when I am just so woefully inadequate to the standard of Christ, measuring up to Him. I was challenged by this verse. And I'm building it up for a reason. I'm not giving it to you for a reason, because I want to say all of this first. But now I will give it to you, okay? In fact, the rest of the episode, I am just going to have you pulled up on my screen, okay? So here's the verse. You have it highlighted for you. Psalm 74:3, 37:4. Nathan, come on. Reading it backwards much? Jeez. Okay, Psalm 37:4. Okay? Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Okay, now don't just read over that. Whenever I'm doing my Bible readings, okay, in the morning, that's when I do. I wake up, I drop my child off at daycare, I have a cup of coffee, and I sit down and I study God's word, and I go throughout my Bible reading. And sometimes when it comes to the book of Psalms, what I will do, and fault on my part, I know that I'm trying to battle this, is just read through it. Not actually sit and meditate on the words, just kind of read through it. Because, psalm after psalm after psalm tends to be the same. But they're not. You're just glancing over them. And we do significant damage to ourselves spiritually when we do that. And we don't take these verses serious and as something that needs to be meditated on and something that needs to be compared with how you are. Okay? So, Christian, read this verse. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Ooh, that's a good one. It really is. Because you have to deal with that in two sections. And the first one has to come with, am I delighting myself in the Lord? Do I delight in God? I mean, that's a good question. Is it not? To delight yourself in God? Yes, it is. Sorry, I had something pop up on my screen. I had to get it off of there. And I have to think about myself. Am I delighting? Do I delight in the concept of God? Not more than just the concept. See, even that is just woefully inadequate. Do I delight in who God is? Do I delight in his person? Do I delight in the fact that I know him? That's a good question. And I have to compare that with something like in what Jesus says in Revelation. Remember what he says to the church at Ephesus? You have lost your first love. You've lost the love that you had at first. Now, I could probably ask any older Christian, and they will tell me that their zeal for the Lord has gone down throughout the years, but that their love has increased. And I can see that as a contradiction, but it's not a contradiction. Fervency and love are two different things, okay? And when it comes to, I'm trying to say this in a way that makes sense. When it comes to delighting yourself in the Lord, that doesn't speak so much to zeal and passion, to me at least, as it does to love, agape love, selfless love, which triggers thought and emotion, not just one or the other. It's both. It has to be both. And I fear the verses where, Jesus says, you've lost your love that you had at first. You've lost your love for me. I fear that. I really do. And I think any reasonable Christian will rightly fear that as well. That is something to be feared. So do you delight yourself in the Lord? And to delight means that you have a certain sense of joy about the thing that you are talking about, or in this case, the person. Okay? Do you have joy when you think about God? When you think about your relationship with him? Is there joy, or is it just a theological academic exercise when it comes to, studying theology, which, I love to do, okay? I love studying theology. I love studying the attributes of God, okay? But if it doesn't become a joy to us who God is, I think we can get dangerously close to idolatry, where we fall in love with just the study of God instead of God himself. And More than that, perhaps being in this world and spending time in it and spending time with all the fun things that are out there has the effect of severely diminishing the delight that we can have in the Lord, because we can delight in a lot of things here. There's tons of things to delight ourselves in. What would cause us to delight in anything else but the Lord? When we focus more on those things than on Him. Okay? And I'm not saying you can't find delight in anything else, but your supreme delight, your sufficient delight needs to come from the Lord. We can find things that distract us from God every single day when it comes to movies, TV shows, video games, hunting, fishing, crafting, coloring, name any sort of comfort, any sort of entertainment that we have today. It's available to you in mass quantities. And this is something that generations of human beings before us, they've not had to deal with these temptations. They've not had to deal with living in this kind of world. Not saying that these things are bad. Remember, okay, balance. We're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. But what we can do is delight more in these things that give us a sense of joy than in God Himself. And that's a problem. So how can we fight that? How can we make sure that our love for the Lord does not diminish? And I think it has to come down to, where are you spending the vast majority of your time? Okay? Outside of work, okay? Outside of work, everybody knows that we have to work to live, okay? To make a living, pay bills and stuff like that. But the vast majority of your free time, okay, when you're not with your children, or even when you are with your children and you're with your spouse, okay, what are you doing? Is what you're doing, is it ever about God? Do you take the time to maybe show your children, instead of, a normal show that we see every day on kids' television channels like SpongeBob or whatever? And once again, those things are not bad, just, context. Are we also introducing them to maybe more Bible-based shows? Are we teaching our children Bible verses? Are we are we doing that for ourselves? Are we immersing ourselves in more biblical content? Okay? Because as much as the world advances in different forms of entertainment, okay, Christians have been doing that too. And we see that recently with Christian-based movies, music, art, and on we go. What you choose to be entertained with the most, not all the time, but the most, I think will fundamentally affect where you find your delight. I hope you followed me in that, okay? Because it is a good thing to delight in the Lord. And when you delight in the Lord, okay, you're going to find the most sufficiency in yourself. Not in yourself. Hold on, let me back up. When you delight in the Lord, you're going to feel more content and sufficient and happy. Because you're delighting not in yourself, you're delighting not in other things that are not transcendent, but in God Himself. Charles Spurgeon did a whole commentary set called The Treasury of David on the Psalms. And under Psalm 37:4, under the section where he talks about explanatory notes and quaint sayings, this is not from him. This is just stuff that he collected. I highlighted some stuff, and this is from John Howe's treatise on of delight in God. And I would really, really like to read that after reading this little section here. So let me read you what he recorded in reference to Psalm 37:4. Okay? So, once again, Psalm 37:4, delight yourself in the Lord, part 2, and He will give you the desires of your heart. Okay? So, let me read this to you. And what else have you to delight in? What thing will you name that shall supply the place of God? Good question. Or be to you in the stead of him. Now, we replace God every single day in one form or another when we prefer something else over him. When we prefer something else over God, we have replaced him. We have put something else in his stead. We're not finding all of our joy in him, all of our delight in him. And that's a problem. So, okay. Moreover, who should delight in him but you? His friends, his sons, those of his own house? Think what life and vigor it will infuse into you, and that the joy of the Lord will be your strength. Nehemiah 8:10. How pleasantly will you hold to your course? I like that. Okay? When you consider the context that you're going to delight in God, how pleasantly will you hold your course? What does that mean? Look, when you have a transcendent value system, when you treasure somebody who is transcendent, okay? Somebody who cannot be taken from you, somebody who will never abandon you, life doesn't get easier, but gets bearable. It becomes more bearable. You become content a lot more. It doesn't necessarily mean that the circumstances of your life are going to change. No, those might stay the same. But the thing is, now that you have God and you find your delight not in money, not in cars, not in conditions of the world that would make, those in the world happy, but you find your delight in God. You can go through anything. You can go through anything and still remain content and joyful and happy. Anything. So let me continue. How pleasantly will you hold on to your course if you delight in God and discharge all the other duties of your present state? How do you work? When you work throughout the day, when you go and you go to your job, you go to your work, what's your attitude? Okay? Is your attitude more so, I don't want to be here. I don't like this place. I don't like these people. I want to go home. And depending on the job that you have, I understand that. Or is it something like, I'm gonna do the best job that I can because I know that it honors God and it gives him a good reputation among the people that I work around that know that I'm a Christian. So one mindset is going to affect your work in a negative way, and the other mindset is going to affect it in a positive way. Okay? So, how pleasantly will you hold to your course and discharge all the other duties of this your present state? You must serve him. Dare you think of throwing off his yoke? Do you ever get tempted with giving up? Stopping serving the Lord? It hasn't benefited me. Everybody else in the world is just advancing beyond me. What's the point? What's the point of continuing on? What's the point of continuing to serve him, take up my cross daily, follow Jesus, deny myself? What's the purpose in that? Okay? I refer you to Psalm, I believe, 74. I believe it's 74. I could be wrong. Oh, hi. I'm with the rebuke department here at KOTC. You see, bonehead meant 73, not Psalm 74. We award him no points for any effort at all. Thank you. Where the psalmist considers the steps of the wicked, okay? He thinks about his own condition, and he thinks, hey, everybody else is advancing beyond me. Why should I even try anymore? And then the text says he discerned their end. He remembered what's going to happen to these people if they keep continuing on in a wicked, rebellious state where, yes, they are becoming successful, and yes, they get riches by dishonest means and stuff like that. But you have to remember, God's letting that happen because that's the only peace they're ever going to have. Discern their end. What's going to happen to those who abandon the Lord and live in that kind of state? And not only that, have yourself, I read what he said, okay? Dare you think of throwing off his yoke? And I thought of what Peter said. Remember in John 6 when all the other disciples, well, all the other people, just abandoned the teachings of Jesus because they were offended at his teachings. And Jesus turned to his disciples and said, what? You guys going to leave me too? You too? You going to do it? What did Peter say? Do you remember what Peter said? Where are we going to go? Lord, where are we going to go? You have the words of eternal life. And when I think about the possibility of walking away from God, that verse is all that screams out to me. It's like, where are you going to go? There's nothing else. There's nothing else but just vain existence. If there's no transcendent value, if there's no transcendent system of morality, if there's no promise of redemption and salvation, what kind of life would I live? I'm certainly not going to go back to how I was living before I was a Christian. There's no way. I can't go back to that. You need to have that in your mind. Okay? You need to have that in your mind. Dare you think of throwing off his yoke? How desirable is it then to take delight in him whom I must serve, which only makes that service acceptable to him and easy to myself. Okay, I'm going to say this, all right? I'm going to say this, and I know exactly what I mean. I know exactly what I mean when I say this. Yep. Serving the Lord makes life easier. It does. It makes life easier. Okay? Once again, like I said before, not because your situation and your circumstances actually change, because they may not. Maybe God will bless you with more. Maybe he'll give you less. Okay? Regardless, when you put your delight in the Lord, when all of your hope and all of your joy and all of your happiness and all of your pleasure comes from God, I'm fully convinced that you can go through any circumstance in this life, and it will be easier than the contrary. I'm certain of it. Even when you're burning at the stake for your belief. Yep, I said it. And I think that that's true. When you find your joy and contentment in God, life simply becomes easier, more bearable than the contrary, than without him. Because your values, what you treasure, has changed. If I made my life all about chasing money or chasing things, I am going to be constantly angry and frustrated and depressed. Why? Because chances are that I'm never going to get exactly what I want. Because as soon as I obtain something I want, I'm going to want the next big thing, right? And now I have to chase after that. And then I get it, maybe. And all of a sudden, it doesn't actually fill that hole that was in me. It's not satisfying to me. We always think that, if I could just have this thing, if I could just be in this part of my life, I'd be happy. I'd be content. But then you get it, and it doesn't happen. And you're in this vicious, never-ending cycle of depression, of wanting, desiring, striving for, obtaining, and, well, this sucks, on to the next thing. It's vicious. And you'll become frustrated, and you'll become depressed, because sometimes you might not even get the thing you're trying to get. You could spend your whole life chasing after something, like money, okay? There's a really, really good meme. I don't know if it's a meme. It's a little cartoon, okay? I'll put it up here. This guy chasing money all of his life, okay? All of his life. And he gets to the end of life, and he's finally got everything he wants. He's got all the money. Now what? Oh, time to die. It was for nothing, okay? So there's that option, or you could put your value, you can put your treasure in someone else. Someone who will be with you throughout all of that. You can take delight in the Lord and not in stuff or things or circumstances. I think that's challenging. I think it is. But I think that once you challenge yourself to do this, to take delight in the Lord, and you make it a conscious effort to be delighted in Him, you're going to be a happier person. You're going to be more content. Let me finish up the rest of this quote. Further, this is a phrase, a pleasure none can rob of you. Yep. A joy that cannot be taken from you. This delight in the Lord. Other objects of your delight are vanishing daily. It's like we just talked about that. Neither men nor devils can ever hinder you delighting in God. No one can take that from you. If your hearts be so inclined, and were you never brought to take pleasure in any person or thing to which you had a former aversion, one that had wronged you might yet possibly win you by after kindness. Give a reason why you should be more difficult towards the blessed God that never wronged you, and whose way towards you has constantly imported so much goodwill. There's no reason to not be delighted in the Lord. Logically, think about it logically. There's no reason to not be. He's the only thing, he's the only person that never changes and can't be corrupted, can't fade away, can't die. He will always be there. So, it makes the most logical sense to find your purpose, your delight in God. Okay? Take delight in God. Take delight in God. Now, okay. That was a lot. I know that was a lot. But at the same time, I also know that is important. That one verse. Let me read you a few, verses of Psalm 37. Starting at verse 4. We'll start at verse 4. Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord. Trust in Him, and He will act. He will bring forth your righteousness as the light, and your justice as the noonday. Be still before the Lord, and wait patiently for Him. Fret not yourself over the one who prospers in his way, over the man who carries out evil devices. Refrain from anger and forsake wrath. Fret not yourself, it tends only to evil. Now listen. If you find your delight in things or in other people outside of God, even people, you find your delight in people, you find your delight in anything here, you're going to be impatient and you're going to get angry, okay? Delight in the Lord and you'll be patient. That's why He says, be still before the Lord and wait patiently for Him. There may be, and look, there may be things that you want to accomplish in your life, and that's okay. That's all right. I want to continue to write books. My second one's coming out soon. But the problem will become, the problem becomes if you put your delight in things that you accomplish here, you're going to be impatient and you're going to fret and you're going to get angry. Okay? If you do that, you're going to become angry because you're not getting what you want. Why? Why are you getting angry at things that you're not getting? Because you have chosen to put your delight in things here. Whereas you can want to do things here and want to accomplish things here. You might even want something here, okay? But if your primary delight is in God, okay, you'll be patient because things will happen in your life by His time, not by yours. His time. Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for Him. Fret not yourself over the one who prospers in his way, over the man who carries out evil devices. Don't get angry because somebody else is advancing and you're not, and they don't know the Lord and you do, don't get angry about that, okay? Because what you will show in your heart is almost that, well, my desires kind of are on my stuff. Because if I'm getting angry over their success of their stuff, their finances, whatever it is, then ultimately what you're saying, at least in that moment, is that I do delight in stuff to the extent that it bothers me when I don't have it. Instead, delight yourself in the Lord. Delight yourself in the Lord. You'll be a happier person. You really will. Okay, I think we're going to end it there. I know that was a lot of stuff. And, well, I hope it blessed you. And we'll pick it up again next week, and we'll see what other shenanigans we can get into. So, take care. God bless. Please like, share, subscribe. Really helps out. And see you later. Take care.